Hello, and welcome back to the Chasing Poker Greatness YouTube channel. In the last few episodes of Tactical Tuesday, we focused mainly on how to get your opponents to fold the best hand, aka bluffing. In the next few episodes of Tactical Tuesday, we're going to be spending some time looking closely at value betting. Value betting is actually part of the game that drives your win rate the most, so it's really important to get it right. This week's episode is going to focus specifically on Ace-King, so stay tuned to see how I get the most out of what I think is one of the best hands in No Limit Hold'em. We hope you enjoyed today's episode on getting max value out of your Ace-Kings.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Tactical Tuesday. As always, this is Coach Brad, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Jonathan Chai. How you doing, sir?
Doing good. I'm excited to talk about these Ace-King hands and excited to kind of get your opinion on how I played them. This episode is going to be it's going to go back to like the old school Tactical Tuesdays where I bring in hands that I have questions about and just ask you what your opinion is on how I played them. So
yeah,
no wolf hands this week, just my hands, maybe my punts.
Well, we'll be trying to debunk the myth that, Ace-King is Anna Kournikova. It looks good, but it never wins. Which, by the way, I said that the other day. I can't remember where I was at, and I realized, wow, that is like a very specific time statement about Ace-King, because I'm sure most of the listeners are like early 20s are like, I don't get the reference. I don't understand.
I'm pretty sure the only reason I know who Anna Kournikova is because I play poker. I think I'm part of that generation too. That's like, okay, yeah, I've heard of her, but it's because of all these old guys complaining about Ace-King.
All right, let's debunk the myth. So everybody folds a button. Who opens it? 3 big blinds, $30. You 3-bet to 120 with Ace of Hearts, King of Spades. They call. Flop is 8-8-7 with 2 spades, so you do have a backdoor spade draw. First decision point here: c-bet or not to c-bet.
So I think the first piece of information that's really important here, and also, I guess I'll get to this in a couple seconds, but the player on the button, P1, is a very loose, aggressive, I'm going to say white belt. Just plays way too many hands. Is playing, you can't see the HUD here, but is playing something along the lines of like 48-28 for his VPIP and PFR, which means he's putting chips in the pot 48% of the time pre-flop, which is very, 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 very high. And also just in general, playing very aggressively playing aggressively post-flop. That being said, I think that I should have 3-bet larger than the standard 3-bet size. Usually that's something I'm pretty good about adjusting to, but it's something that upon review of this hand, it's something that I regret not doing, is just 3-betting to like $150 or $160, because I'm pretty sure this exact player profile would have, it's probably pretty inelastic between like 120 and 150. So anyways, I think I should have 3-bet larger pre-flop, but we're here. And my strategic adjustment, usually I'm going to be doing a lot of range betting on paired boards out of position as a PFR, but this time I decided to check and give P1 as much rope as possible to either just stay in there with dominated hands. Like I don't want him to fold, hands like ace 5 offsuit. If he kills a 3-bet with those types of hands, I'd rather us both like turn top pair, and now he's just putting in tons of money, or give him a chance to turn those hands into a bluff. So strategic adjustment for this type of player is me just checking and planning on bluff catching with Ace-King, probably depending on size, but can't imagine folding on 8-8-7, especially with backdoor spades.
Yeah, not the flop anyway.
Yeah.
So you check.
Would you do anything differently versus like the player type that I described, or are you also just kind of?
I think you could also bet like a quarter.
Mm-hmm.
You could bet really, really small so that they're way less likely to fold the like ace 5 offsuit type hands, or any overcard hands, for instance. It's really hard for them to have like a hand that doesn't have an overcard or some kind of gut shot on 8-8-7. Even like 4-5 has a gut shot. So I think that if you bet quarter pot, you're essentially betting for value and can get called super wide. And then the place where I would start checking would be the turn with Ace-King here. So I think that's the other alternative, is to bet really small and then start doing a lot of turn checking. I kind of see the result here once you check. Villain bets really big, like I'm not sure, like 80% pot or so. And one thing the betting quarter does is it lets you set your price on the flop and doesn't create this situation where villain like bets really, really big. But again, like, villain's polarizing here, so you have a really good bluff catcher. So I guess as it is still not the end of the world where like
Gotcha.
you'd probably rather not call 80%, but
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, I was hoping you'd bet smaller. So the alternative kind of plan that you're outlining right now is just bet really small on the flop, get them to the turn with close to range, and then start check calling on the turn. Hopefully I think there's like real merit to that, because I think that once people get to the turn with, Jack 5 of diamonds or whatever this guy could, all types of hands that this guy could have pre-flop, like they might feel a little bit more compelled to bluff than they do here, just because it's like, well, if I call the flop with this hand and face check, like what am I going to do? What am I doing if I'm not bluffing?
sure.
So I totally see the merit of betting small and checking the turn. But anyways, I just had to check the flop and face this really uncomfortable size. You ever thinking about folding, just given the plan? Due to size, you're not size sensitive at all here. Okay, yeah, clearly I'm not either, as the YouTube viewer has already seen.
I'm more range sensitive. Like I realize that, like, if based on your description of villain, they can have so many hands, so few of those hands connect solidly with the board, that equity wise, I just think I have a lot of equity here with ace king. So I'm pretty price insensitive against this villain profile.
Cool.
Turns of 4 spades. So 4 7 8 8 with the 8 7 4 spades. So you turn king high flush draw, you check. I'm guessing villain checks behind on the flush completer. The reason that I guess that is because you have value on the river. So, or maybe it just turns into bluff catching, and that's where you get all your value.
Yeah, he does not check back. He does not care about the flush completing turn. I think the rest of this hand is I don't think there's too much to discuss here. Obviously not folding once we turn a spade. I probably wasn't planning on folding even on a non-spade. So on a spade, folding is just out of the question when we have the second nut flush draw to go along with our 2 overs, to go along with the fact that maybe we just have the best hand here versus this exact villain. So yeah, he comes out with half pot and gritting my teeth a little bit, hoping for something good on the river.
3 of spades.
Do I want him to jam?
Yeah. Doesn't matter what you want.
Yeah.
So you river the 4 flush, the king high flush on a 4 flush. You check, villain jams 6-18 into 12-33. So I don't know if you want him to or don't want him to, but you are essentially locked in and have no choice here other than to call. So you call, and villain just has the ace-9-0. So they
definitely not a hand that I would expect stronger players to be peeling pre-flop. Maybe this hand gets into the 4-bet range, but I think majority of the time should just be folded facing a 3-bet. Yeah, I think this hand just is a good example of illustrating like how all the good things that can happen when you allow villain to keep dominating hands in their range instead of just blindly c-betting and letting them off the hook a little bit.
Very nice. Very nice. Let's cue up hand number 2. Once again, you have ace king, and if you're enjoying this episode on maxing value with ace king, click the subscribe button and follow along with Tactical Tuesday for the foreseeable future. So here with the ace king, button opens 2.5x, $12.50. You 3-bet to $55, and they call. Everything is pretty standard.
Yeah, no reads on the button this time, so don't know if he's a fish or a reg, although his open size seems pretty reg-ish, the 2.5x, so I guess I'll just start there and assume that he's more likely to be on the reggy side.
So the flop is king 10-8 with the 10-8 of clubs. I think king high board, you can certainly bet. You have a hand that wants to get some value. Starting out with half, I think it makes sense. You have the ace of clubs, which is pretty nice. Villain calls, turns the 3 of hearts, 223 in the pot. You have 400 behind. Villain's got about the same. So, yeah, turn. Interesting decision. You can check the turn. You can bet the turn. I kind of presume that you check the turn, but
you know me too well.
So you check the turn. Tell me why you check the turn.
So, I really, really love this line or this strategy from 3-bet pots out of position PFR, and I can't stop doing it. Just want to show it off as much as possible. I really like betting big on the flop, and then especially on brick turns, just checking. I think that a lot of good things can happen here when I check. I think the button can start value cutting themselves with hands like king queen, king jack, just other king X's that don't think that I would check a better king on the turn. I also think that they, on a board texture this dynamic, on a flop texture this dynamic, king 10-8, 2 clubs, they can just find tons of stabs on the turn, everything from like jack 9 suited, queen jack suited, ace jack, ace queen even, all the, club hands, like 6-5 of clubs, hands that really have like no showdown. And depending on the size that they pick on the turn, I can do some check jamming if they stab. And then the other thing that I really like about this line is that if they do decide to check back the turn with some sort of, whatever part of their range, bluff catcher, value cut possibility, whatever hand, I can still jam the river for a little bit under 2x pot. And that's actually what ends up happening here. So I check and the button checks back. And what I found is that like facing the overbet river jam, like the players that I play against seem to just have a really tough time discerning between which bluff catchers are the best ones to call. And I think population tends to just call too much on the turn. Like they just say like, well, this bluff catcher is the same as like pretty much any other one. So I guess I'm just going to call with all of them or almost all of them, which is what seems like is happening when I play these spots. Any feedback or advice on
yeah, so to play devil's advocate here, and I know that you really like that line with your value. One hitch here is that I think that due to the SPR being around 2, I actually don't think Villain's going to stab the turn with their draws at a very high frequency, because getting check jammed on is so devastating for their jack 9s and queen jacks and club type hands. You block ace queen and ace jack, which would be the gut shots that they would be more apt to stab the turn with, because not realizing your gut shot equity is not as terrible as an open ender or a flush draw.
Yeah,
so
is not as painful.
I actually think that when you check the turn here, it's going to check behind at a very high frequency. My gut read is that the turn's going to check through at a very high frequency, and then like you're really at that point hoping for a clean river that is not a 7, a 9, a 10, an 8, an ace, a club. Like, so, that's kind of the downside to going for the stop and go all in, is I just don't think you're going to face a bet here on the turn at a very high frequency.
How would you compare this strategy to a strategy that I tried out in a P&E actually that got that's on this channel from a couple weeks ago, or I guess once this comes out, it's going to be almost a month ago, where instead of taking this line, I decided to bet bigger on the flop, 75%, and then just jam the turn, thinking that like, I don't know what they do with their bluff catchers on the turn. It's like very, very what board texture where I could have a lot of bluffs, so I could see people overcalling, and I can actually deny equity from like hands I can't call the turn jam, right? Like the 5-6 of clubs type hands, the jack 9 suited.
I don't think it's crazy.
Okay.
I think like shrinking the game tree into 2 bets, 2 post flop bets, playing a 2-bet game is probably, it seems reasonable. Like I haven't thought about it super in depth as it is related to this hand, but it seems viable. I don't really see much of a problem with it, because I think that you still accomplish the same thing, right? Like Here, you're actually playing a two bet game. You're playing a 2-street game with this
But
line.
I'm letting them over-realize.
But they also get to over-realize, and you have very limited visibility as to when you can value bet the river. Like, the river's a 9, you're probably not 2x jamming, right? River's a club, you're probably not 2x jamming. Like, there are certainly cards that prevent you from placing a river value bet. But if you did bet big on the flop and jam the turn, we are like, the turn's a 3 of hearts. There's only one card coming that'll prevent you from jamming. And that just seems much more reasonable to me. And it also seems like a spot where villain can quite easily tell themselves that you have like so many available bluffs that big bet, then jam the turn that the more I talk about it, the more I'm coming around to, I think, like, big betting the flop and then jamming the turn is probably the way to go.
Okay. Actually, that's good. We'll do a Tactile Tuesday on that. I'll try that out the next few times I get in the spot and flop something good, and we'll do a Tactile Tuesday episode on that strat.
Let's see what happens here. Wow, we get the clean.
Red 6.
A red 6, the clean run out. And not even much speculation. You're just going to jam.
Yeah.
So you jam. Villain calls. Villain has the 10-7 of diamonds. So they bluff caught with...
See why I like this line so much? I don't know if I'm going to be able to give this out, but man, this is like the type of stuff that happens where I'm just like, like, bet check bet, over bet jam river. I mean, look at all the... Well, this guy probably folds the turn, if I turn c-bet this board. So yeah, just feels extra good when
it comes
when you get a result like this with a hand like this.
Yeah. Nice hand, sir. Way to max the value with your ace and your king. And yeah, I look forward to breaking down some hands in a future episode where you're playing a 2-street game with big bet flop, jam turn.
Yeah.
That's all I got for today's episode of Tactical Tuesday.
See you next week.
See you next week.
If you enjoyed today's Tactical Tuesday on getting max value out of Ace King, make sure to like the video and please subscribe to our channel, as it helps us out a lot and lets us know what type of content you want to see in the future. Thanks again for watching this week's episode of Tactical Tuesday.
This is Tactical Tuesday on Chasing Poker Greatness with your hosts, Brad Wilson and John Chai. Coach Brad approved. Are you a lone wolf searching for the ultimate pack? The CPG Wolf program is a close-knit brotherhood hell-bent on one thing only: chasing poker greatness. Powered by bleeding-edge wolf strats and led by Coach Brad and his lieutenants, CPG Wolves are systematically prepared for almost any spot they'll encounter on the green felt. If you want to plug into an elite team and have a step-by-step game plan to realize your full poker potential, you can apply at cpgwolves.com. Space is limited, and the pack is only as strong as its weakest member. So only the hungriest, grittiest, and most driven will be accepted into the program. Applications are open at cpgwolves.com.